Production of Kansas City Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up, the race for the White House moves through KC. News flash why the NRA is bypassing a gun-toting Republican and endorsing a Democrat for Missouri governor. Can Kansas City's most luxurious hotel be declared blighted? What next for Johnson County's most beleaguered piece of real estate? Why Brownback wants your input? And what do these four former Kansas governors want from you? Hello, I'm Nick Haynes, and it's great to be back as we connect the dots on some of the most important stories making the news in this place we call home. Dissecting those stories this half hour, the host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske, star business and development reporter Steve Vokrot, pitch contributing writer Barbara Shelley, and star reporter, columnist, and blogger Dave Helling. Well, the race for the White House weaved through Kansas City this week. Hillary Clinton speaking at the National Baptist Convention downtown.
The day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Clinton speaking to the nation's oldest and largest black religious organization at a less than crowded Kansas City Convention Center.
The strength of the black church, the solid rock on which so much is built.
Meanwhile, the GOP ticket also amping up its attention on Missouri this week. Vice presidential nominee Mike Pence hosting a town hall event in Springfield and a rally in the St. Louis suburb of Chesterfield.
This movement is coming together. This party is coming together, and we're going to elect Donald Trump as the next president of the United States of America.
Okay, we're going to start, though, with Hillary Clinton. Did she come to Kansas City because she thinks she has a shot at winning Missouri, a state a Democratic nominee for president hasn't won in 20 years? Or was it simply there's a whole bunch of influential African Americans from all around the country here, and I could do myself some good by being in front of them, Steve?
Nick, I think it's the latter. I don't think Missouri's in play right now at all. You send your vice presidential nominee, Donald Trump did, to Springfield, sort of shoring up the base here. It sort of looks like the state might be getting some attention that it hasn't gotten for a while, but wait until they start running TV ads, Mike. If they do, that would be a sign the state's in play, and that's not happening yet.
Hillary Clinton appearing, of course, all around the country. Was there anything she said in Kansas City that we haven't heard thus far, Dave?
Well, not so much in words, but in tone. She, particularly before the Baptist minister, she was quite religious in her remarks, very personal. Quoted from the Bible on several occasions. In fact, we all were chuckling a little bit because she'd start reading a Bible verse, and then all the ministers would sort of finish it for her because they knew it by heart. And so I thought, and the campaign told us, sort of a background memo, that this is part of a pivot, a bit of hers, to talk more personally about her own story and her faith and some other things as an approach to voters. So the tone was very different. She did take a few shots at Donald Trump, didn't mention his name, but some obvious shots at Donald Trump. But Steve is right in the sense that it's not about Missouri. It is about trying to make sure that she gets not only African-American votes, which she'll win overwhelmingly, but enthusiastic votes and a big turnout. She needs those, particularly in battleground states, and that was the message on Thursday.
You mentioned big turnout in your story this morning, though. You say that they had to close off a part of the convention center because they didn't have the attendance they were expecting at the speech itself.
Right, it was a less than half full. In a room in which they expected 8,000 or 9,000 people maybe to show up. Now that's partly because it wasn't clear whether the public was invited or not, and so the public largely stayed away. It was just the delegates to the convention that were there. But anyone who doubts that there is a bit of an enthusiasm gap for Hillary Clinton isn't paying attention. The people who like her, but there isn't this sort of groundswell that there was, for example, for Barack Obama, certainly, and maybe to a degree even Donald Trump, and I think that was reflected here.
Okay. Now, this was a group, by the way, the National Baptist Convention, just a few weeks ago, an atheist group was filing suit against them because they were going to get some city money, and they thought, well, how should money go towards a religious entity? And that money was blocked. But this should still not be a partisan organization. Was Donald Trump invited to this convention, too?
We don't know that, but the guess is yes. And they made a point of saying, the leaders of the convention said after the speech, look, we don't endorse candidates, we're not endorsing Hillary Clinton, it's a charity, a nonprofit charity, and so they could get into big trouble. Churches always can get into big trouble if they explicitly endorse someone.
But to be clear, this was not Donald Trump's crowd.
But yeah, Donald Trump wasn't going to go to this group. He went to an African-American church in Detroit, as I reported in my story, and so that was that.
Well, let's stick with elections for a moment. We usually expect Republicans to be the party most closely aligned with the NRA, but this week, that political shorthand is turned on its ear as the National Rifle Association endorses Chris Koster, a Democrat, for Missouri governor. What is even all the more surprising is that Koster's opponent is the man who has done more to promote guns in his ads than any other local candidate in recent history, Eric Greitens. So why would the NRA endorse a Democrat over a gun-toting Republican, Barbara?
Well, I like to say that Chris Koster plays a very long game. And I think he's had his eye on this NRA endorsement, which he knows will be great for a Democrat to have running for governor in Missouri for a very long time. In the NRA's announcement, they go back years of, Chris Koster showing his pro-gun credentials. And, even very recently, he took it upon himself and the Attorney General's office to file a lawsuit, jump into a lawsuit filed by a University of Missouri professor seeking more rights to carry on campus. So, yeah, Chris Koster's been working on courting the NRA for a long time.
But again, that is usually considered an endorsement for a Republican. He's also getting endorsements from like the Farm Bureau, Steve Kraske. Again, endorsement that usually go to Republicans. Where is Eric Greitens even getting his support?
Well, Eric Greitens has his support from some Republicans out there for sure, but we're seeing some new politics here, Nick, some new calculation on the part of Chris Koster, who's saying the way for a Democrat to win in right-leaning Missouri these days is to court Republican groups on some issues. Gun issues, for example, farm issues on another hand here. That's the path to victory, and Chris Koster is gambling that even his diehard supporters, some of whom are very upset with him for voting for pro-gun issues, that they'll stay with him despite his switch here.
Well, 2016 is an exciting and at the same time confusing election year. How are area teens who are getting to vote for the first time in November weighing up campaign 2016? Well, we asked them over coffee as part of our ongoing Common Grounds conversation series.
I just turned 18 in April, and this is my first year being able to vote. With that being said, I feel like I was kind of given the short end of the straw along with everybody else who turned 18 this year, because it's like, we want to, right, our first election, this is what we get.
Because a lot of people are saying that Hillary just lies about everything, and do we really want someone who's going to be speaking in front of everyone telling us lies the whole time? They all lie.
So everyone has this big thing about Donald Trump, but it's like some would argue to say that when it comes to business, he may be the best man for the job due to the fact that right now America is struggling when it comes to our financial standings.
Also another thing, because it's Donald Trump and it's Hillary Clinton, but also Jill Stein is there, and there are other candidates in other parties that we don't really hear about, and that's an issue too, because people think that it's just that America has this two-party system. Right. In fact, there are other third parties that we can't vote for, but the media only puts out Democrat, Republican, so it makes it seem like to us that there's only two that you can do, so it's picking the lesser evil in a sense.
Right.
Oh, and then people aren't educated about the other ones, and so then they're like, oh, I have to pick one of the two.
I struggle a lot with, when people are like, oh, well, maybe it's just easier for me to vote for the third party. And ultimately, like in my head, I'm like, that's probably like, how many votes are they actually gonna get? So I turned 18 in April, and the first thing that I got in the mail was a Gillette razor. Gillette letting me know that I'm 18 and that I can buy razors from them now. Yeah. And then also an Army Reserves inscription card. And so I had to do it or whatever, but it really kind of like blew my mind because nobody was sending me a voter registration card. Nobody was sending me a little pamphlet that said, go here to register. These are your steps. So, it's kind of like, how do we fix this problem? It's a problem that a lot of people are facing, and some people might be like, well, they don't have your information. If Gillette has my information and knows I turned 18, then they know that, they can find out that I should be a registered voter and I haven't, so.
Talking politics with teens over coffee and cake, thanks for the Laughing Place Bakery in Gladstone. Our thanks to Kathy Hannis. coordinator of Greater Kansas City Broadcasters Ascertainment, for pulling a cross-section of teens together for us. Two things stand out in that conversation. One, how young people are pretty much left to their own devices in working out how they go about voting. And second, the appetite to hear more about third-party candidates. And that's highly relevant this week as a new Washington Post poll reveals that Libertarian Party candidate Gary Johnson is actually polling higher in Kansas than almost any state in the nation. 17%. Even in Missouri, he is polling almost double what has been getting in national surveys, with 14%, along with Green Party candidate Jill Stein, who's also on the ballot in both states. What impact will that have in deciding the outcome in Kansas and Missouri, Steve?
Well, I don't know how much it'll directly impact it. I figure that both Missouri and Kansas will probably go for Trump. That's what the polls are showing. Nationally, I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that Gary Johnson may have a little bit of a drag effect on Donald Trump. I think a lot of Republicans and some Democrats, to be fair, are opting for a candidate like Johnson because they're so dissatisfied with the two candidates that the major parties have put forward.
What does it say about us, though, that we are giving far more attention in this neck of the woods, Dave Helling, to third-party candidates than we're seeing in other parts of the country?
Well, it's always unfair to criticize the media for not giving any publicity to third and fourth party candidates, because we do, but it tends to be A, less than supporters would like, and B, commensurate roughly with their support in the public. You know, if we've written about the Libertarians. The second place finisher in the Libertarian race for president was a Kansas City guy named Austin Peterson. We profiled him. I interviewed Jill Stein, put up a 6-minute video with Jill Stein. So we give some exposure to what they're talking about. But the reality is, while everyone gets excited about third and fourth parties this far out, as we get closer, there tends to be a rush back to the major party candidates. People don't want to, quote-unquote, waste their vote, and I think that, too, is reflected.
Which is what Daniel said in that piece there.
I do find that high percentage in Kansas to be interesting, and I wonder if it doesn't speak to confusion within the Republican brand right now because of Sam Brownback, his unpopularity, and what's going on in Kansas government.
It also reflects the confusion about Donald Trump, which is profound.
Well, but it's certainly not unprecedented in Kansas. I think it was in 1996, Ross Perot, running as an independent, got 19% in Kansas, Nick. That was like the third highest total of any state in the country. So there is this independent streak in Kansas that's long lasting. I also just was going to say, I was so struck by your video of the young people talking. You listened to several young women speaking, none of whom came out in support of Hillary Clinton, despite the history-breaking, making moment that faces the country right now. I see the same thing in my classes at UMKC. Young women, not the least bit impressed with the idea that history might be made here. They insist they're making their choices based solely on the qualities of the candidates. The gender has absolutely nothing to do with their choices.
In other news, there's been lots of criticism over the years about developers getting millions in tax breaks for projects that critics complain are in thriving areas of the city. This week, Kansas City's most luxurious hotel, the Intercontinental on the Country Club Plaza, is seeking blight status from City Hall. The hotel's owners want that designation so they can set up a community improvement district around the property. That would then allow them to raise sales taxes to update the facility. If you polled people in Kansas City about blighted areas of the city, would anyone point to the Intercontinental Hotel on the Country Club Plaza, Steve?
Well, I think that's why this issue has gotten as much attention as it has. I mean, particularly in the context of a time when these sorts of tax arrangements are being scrutinized in Kansas City more so than perhaps any other time that I can think of. You have the Intercontinental, as you point out. They market themselves, luxury and elegance are words that you'll see on their website, but they've produced a blight study that tells a bit of a different story. They have pictures in the garage that shows, some cement and rebar sticking out. They show carpet in meeting rooms that is stained and things like that. But there is a segment of the public that is thinking, why do you want to pass this tax off onto your users? And to be clear, this is a tax only on the people who get a room at the hotel and buy, go to the bar or whatever. It's not a tax on the broader public. But the question is, why is the hotel seeking this avenue to realize revenue rather than just raise room rates.
So why not raise room rates or add an additional fee somewhere along the line? You always see a huge number of fees on your bill if you ever stay at a hotel, Barbara.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I find that very curious because, you know, the average rate of a room at the Intercontinental is $190. So 1% would be a little under $2. And you do wonder why they don't just automatically add that onto the bills. You know, I know they want to remain competitive in their market in Kansas City, but you know, of course, as we know, other hotels are saying, well, if they get to be a community improvement district, you know, we're going to apply for that status too.
But back to what Steve's point is here, though, the regular members of the public, unless you're actually going to be shopping, you're going to be eating at the restaurant there, going to the bar, staying overnight there, you're not going to be paying a dime.
Nothing to worry about here. And just to add on here, there are rules that govern use of sales tax dollars that the state applies that are in control of this situation here a little bit. The state does have some say in what happens here. But yeah, underscore the point, no one in the general public pays for these improvements. This is just a terminology controversy that doesn't really have a whole lot of backbone to it.
Now, as we're talking about what people get money and who doesn't, but just before we went on a huge fundraising break here at KCPT, there was a huge conversation, front page news in the Star, that there was going to be a big effort to reform tax incentives in Kansas City, and we were going to clamp down on these. Whatever happened to that, Steve? Did anything pass?
Well, it's ongoing.
Okay.
It did pass out of committee this week. The council's off next week, and they may take it off the following week. The reform measure in general, just to be very brief about it, is it would cap certain tax abatement levels with a couple of exceptions. And it's been the topic of a lot of discussion. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of organizations that even, you know, this morning are lobbying to try to get certain changes made to it. These types of changes to development incentives, which are used widely in Kansas City, do not get taken up very lightly.
But this could have a chilling effect, some developers say, on people investing in the city if these kinds of changes took place.
When Mark Funkhauser was mayor and they went through some of this, there was a great chilling of investment in Kansas City. Part of that was the recession, of course. I've been through 2 or 3 cycles of these, you know, incentive reform efforts in Kansas City in my 30 years here, and they're honored for a while and then they go away. But I think what the public, some people in the public, some members of the public are completely against the idea of it, and you get that, and developers, of course, think it should be used on every project that it possibly can be used on. But I think the Intercontinental Hotel discussion points out an important point for the public, and that is these are arbitrary. We really sort of do a case-by-case decision-making on this hotel, that restaurant, this retail project, this declaration of blight. And I think that's what frustrates the public more than anything else, is it doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason. It just comes up, is voted on, and then goes on somewhere else. And to the extent the council may be able to solve that problem, maybe the public will appreciate that effort.
But you know, this also brings up the point, the East Side, folks who live there are so frustrated with this. Look what happened this week in Kansas City. You know, this week, there's a lot of discussion. The city's going to put forward, you know, a bunch of money for the Downtown Performing Arts Center that UMKC is pushing. Same amount of money that the folks on the East Side were looking at for redevelopment of the 18th and Vine Jazz District. That amount of money was knocked down from $30 million that was talked about down to like $7 million. And so that's where that is. That's the same amount of money that is being looked at for the UMKC downtown campus, and hardly any hue and cry over that at all. The folks on the East Side say, hey, our projects get all kind of scrutiny when things on the west side of town happen without hardly anybody blinking an eye.
Was there any hue and cry about giving $7 million of City Hall money, taxpayer money, towards the UMKC Conservatory downtown, Steve?
Not very much. I mean, at least as far as city leadership is concerned and the university itself, it seems like a pretty popular idea. So, you know, there was a little bit of discussion about how it wasn't very publicly discussed until kind of the last minute before it came up to the council, but beyond that, it doesn't. It certainly did not get as much scrutiny as the 18th.
The other thing that drives people crazy quickly, Nick, is that Kansas City always seems able to come up with $7 million out of nowhere when these things come up. Oh, we're broke. We can't hire police. We can't pave the streets. We can't collect the trash, the snow removal. But we happen to have this $7 million for this project. That too frustrates voters.
Well, we're talking about apples and oranges, very different things. Okay. Talking about hue and cries, though, when we were heading into our summer fundraising drive over in Johnson County, members of the Mission City Council were killing off the latest plans for the Gateway Project, also known as that large barren wasteland, formerly home to the Mission Mall. What happens now, Steve Vockrodt? Is this cat out of 9 lives?
Well, we've said that at various points, and
we've said it 37 times on this program in just the last 6 months.
I will trust that count, but. So they did kill his latest plan. That but he does own the developer on this owns the property. It's not like he's being brought in on a contract basis.
So the city can't now decide we want to have a new use for this land at this point.
Well, no. I mean, they can just keep telling him no if they want to. But I mean, ultimately he owns it. If he wants to get it developed, he either has to do it without incentives or. It's really puzzling to know what the path forward is.
Oh, this is just amazing. This is such a setback again for Mission, Kansas. This is the gateway to that little town. This is a terrifically prime piece of real estate in Kansas City at the intersection of Shawnee Mission Parkway and Johnson Drive. It's not far from my home, which is why I can recite all this. The fact that this thing is not going forward, month after month and now year after year, just amazing.
More than half the justices on the Kansas Supreme Court could soon be fired. At least that's the goal of some Republicans and advocacy groups in Kansas who are campaigning against 4 of the state's justices up for a retention vote this fall. They're livid at how the black-robed jurists have handled school funding issues and even some death penalty cases. This week, 4 former Kansas governors, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, came together in Kansas City to offer a different take. Everyone, it seems, is fixated on the race for the White House. Was anyone, though, paying attention to former Kansas governors Bill Graves, Kathleen Sebelius, John Carlin, and Mike Hayden sitting in easy chairs at the Chamber of Commerce boardroom at Union Station, Barbara?
Well, they didn't just talk at Union Station. They actually went on a little tour around the state to say the same things. And yeah, they got some media attention. I think we've only begun to see the full extent of a very, I would say, concerted and maybe vicious campaign to keep 4 of these justices from being retained on their seats. And I think the governors were doing a preemptive strike so far. But yeah, the conservatives have long had a problem with the Kansas Supreme Court in particular, have a problem with the way those justices are selected. They want to send a clarion call out really nationally that they can do something about so-called liberal jurists.
Kansas House Republicans putting out a press release this week blasting this latest tour of the 4 governors, saying, well, they're just trying to protect their appointees on the bench. They were all appointed, these justices, by those 4 governors, and they have a big graphic with the number 6 on it, which was the number of times the U.S. Supreme Court has overturned Kansas Supreme Court decisions on death penalty and violent crime cases, saying that they're really out of step with what's happening.
Yeah, but that's the nature of the court system. I mean, you always have opinions and orders getting overturned by higher courts, and that's sort of a reflection of arguably the beauty of the system. You have checks and balances within it. These retention efforts tend to be pretty difficult. I think a lot of members of the public don't really know the names of the people, and hinging it on the school financing decision, I don't know how much traction that'll get, given the primary election results seem to show some dissatisfaction with how the legislature is handling that issue.
2 things. There's also a lot of people very upset at a court case out of Wichita involving folks called the Carr brothers who went on a crime spree back in 2000. There was an argument about how these folks should be sentenced. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned the Kansas Supreme Court, and some of the victims down in Wichita, the family members of victims, are raising a huge fight over these judges and what's happening here. Let me just add here, I think we're seeing kind of an extraordinary moment in Kansas. The fact we have 4 former governors coming together on this policy. We've seen a couple of them come together, a Democrat and Republican, to oppose Governor Sam Brownback's tax policies here. You do begin to see that the highest, most visible faces in Kansas sort of moving into positions of opposition to what the Republican conservatives are doing in Kansas. We've never seen that before, at least going back several decades, Nick. It's an important moment, I think.
But I think things are changing because some people complain, you know, that politicians don't listen. They're out of touch with the public they represent. So should Kansas Governor Sam Brownback be getting credit this week when he hosts a news conference to say he wants to hear what you have to say about how schools are funded in Kansas. And he wants to hear your solutions for how to fix it, Dave.
A couple of things. When Steve talks about the 4 governors, that was an unmistakable shot at Sam Brownback. Anyone who's paying attention knows that that was a direct shot between the eyes at him. And by the way, he is so unpopular, he's staying out of the courts fight because I think he believes and others believe that it would negatively affect this effort to oust the judges. And while we can appreciate this effort to listen to the voices of Kansas on school finance, it is extraordinarily complicated, will require enormous political compromise and some courage on the part of lawmakers and the governor. Anyone who thinks that you can snap a finger and find that even with this, these systematic hearings across Kansas are probably fooling themselves. Unless Sam Brownback is willing to compromise and negotiate, we're in for another stalemate next year, no matter how many.
But does this show that he is willing to negotiate and compromise? The fact that he is being so open about having an ear open for people's views on what they'd like to see with school finance, Barbara?
Well, it's not like he's going to go around the state having public hearings or anything. He's asking for online comments, basically. And I don't know, maybe he should get some credit for seeking, but he's not getting much love on social media. I see a lot of too little, too late.
But the most important thing when it comes to Kansas school finance, Nick, is that state Supreme Court ruling that's coming down the pike, maybe later on this year, early next year, in the offing hundreds of millions of dollars, perhaps, that the court will order state lawmakers to increase spending on education. And that's the big kahuna here, not this thing.
Steve.
Well, when we talk about is Sam Brownback going to listen to people's input, I go back to a story that Dave did a little while back that sort of talked about, Brownback's pretty set in his ways, so I don't know how much any public input's going to sway him.
I mean, anyone who thinks that in January these moderates will get together and the sun will shine in Kansas and everyone will agree on how to finance the schools or how to raise taxes or not raise taxes is probably being a bit delusional. Sam Brownback has a history. His feet are in concrete. Unless that starts to crack, we've got 2 more years of stalemate.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers from the Kansas City Star, Steve Vokrot and Dave Helling, keeping you up to date. Weekdays at 11 on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske, and Pitch contributing writer, Barbara Shelley. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.